We think we have a pretty good handle on human history, right? But what if I told you an entire branch of the human family, a group you could almost call superhumans, was completely erased from our books? And that the only reason we know about them now is because of a discovery so tiny it could literally fit on the tip of your finger. So picture this. It's 2008. We're deep in the remote mountains of Siberia, in a place called the Denisova Cave. Archaeologists are doing their thing, careful, tedious work in the cold. They have absolutely no idea they're about to completely rewrite the story of humanity. And then they find it. Not a skull, not a skeleton, just this one single, tiny piece of a finger bone from a young girl who lived there maybe 50,000 years ago. At first, the assumption is obvious, right? Must be a Neanderthal. They were our famous ancient cousins after all. But then they sent it off for DNA testing. And the results, well, they sent absolute shockwaves through the entire scientific world. Because this bone, it wasn't Neanderthal, and it wasn't one of our direct ancestors, a modern human. It was something else, something totally new. So the question became, who on earth did this bone belong to? This tiny fragment didn't just add a little detail to our story, it took the whole book we thought we knew about our ancient past and just shattered it. The lab results were crystal clear. The genetic code locked inside that little bone belonged to a third, totally distinct branch of the human family, a lost people who walked the earth at the same time as our ancestors. And since they were discovered in the Denisova Cave, they got a name, the Denisovans. And just like that, our family tree wasn't so simple anymore. The old story we all learned, it was just us, Homo sapiens, and the Neanderthals, that was blown out of the water. Suddenly there was a third major player on the field, and we had been completely blind to them for all of history. But okay, this is where the story gets really, really weird. The Denisovans might have physically disappeared, but they didn't vanish completely. Turns out they left behind a kind of ghostly echo, an invisible legacy hidden in the one place nobody ever thought to look, inside our own DNA. And this is the central mystery of the Denisovans. On one hand, their genetic footprint is enormous. We find traces of it in millions of people today, all across Asia and Oceania. But on the other hand, their physical remains, they're almost non-existent. For a group that was so widespread, we have just a handful of bones. It's a massive contradiction. So how did their DNA get into us? Well, there's only one way that happens. At some point in the distant past, our Homo sapiens ancestors met the Denisovans, and they had children together. It's why today, people in places like Tibet or Papua New Guinea can have up to 5% Denisovan DNA. This wasn't just some brief encounter, it was a really important part of our shared story. Now, even though we have so few fossils, the ones we do have, well, they paint a picture of an extraordinary biology. You could almost call it a blueprint for a kind of ancient superhuman. When scientists started analyzing the few remains they had, like a jawbone found in Tibet and a skull from China that they nicknamed Dragon Man, they found some pretty startling differences. Their jaws, twice as thick as ours. Their teeth were huge, abnormally large. And maybe most shocking of all, their skulls suggest they had about 20% more brain capacity than the average person today. I mean, think about that. A more robust body and a significantly larger brain. It's led some researchers to suggest that Denisovans weren't just another flavor of ancient human. They were physically and maybe even cognitively something more, almost like an upgraded version of us. And that interbreeding we talked about, it left modern humans with some incredible biological gifts. The EPAS1 gene, which is what allows Tibetans to live and thrive at super high altitudes with thin air, that came directly from the Denisovans. They also seem to have passed on genes for a supercharged immune system. Some even speculate they gave us traits linked to slower aging. These guys were built to last. Okay, so if their biology was that advanced, just wait till you hear about their technology, because the artifacts found with them in that same cave are so sophisticated, they shouldn't exist. Not back then. I mean, let's put this into perspective. The Denisovans were making these incredible things around 70,000 years ago. It's hard to even comprehend how long ago that is. It's tens of thousands of years before the last ice age ended. The Great Pyramids of Giza, by comparison, are practically modern history. It's a mind-boggling jump. So let's look at what they actually made. First, there's this stunning green stone bracelet. It's polished smooth, and it has this perfectly round hole drilled through it. To do that in such a hard stone would have required something like a high-speed drill, a tool that wasn't supposed to be invented for another 60,000 years. They also made the world's oldest known sewing needle, which tells us they were tailoring fitted clothes while our ancestors were probably just wearing animal skins. And they made symbolic art, which points to complex language and culture. One expert really could it best. He said that finding this level of technology in a 70,000-year-old cave is like cracking open a pharaoh's tomb and finding a brand new iPhone sitting inside. It's completely out of time, and it just forces you to rethink everything. So this all leads to the biggest, most haunting mystery of all. If the Denisovans were so biologically advanced, so technologically brilliant, where did they go? Why aren't they here now? Well, there are two main theories kicking around. The first one is pretty dark: prehistoric genocide. The idea is that as our ancestors, Homo sapiens, spread out across the world, they were aggressive and numerous, and they simply outcompeted or wiped out the Denisovans, erasing their story from history. The other theory is that the Denisovans, maybe to avoid conflict, retreated to remote mountains and caves, only to be wiped out by a massive global cataclysm. And this cataclysm theory, it's tied to a very real event in Earth's history called the Younger Dryas. Around 12,800 years ago, our planet went through a period of sudden, incredibly violent climate change. There's evidence of meteor impacts, of catastrophic global floods, an event so big it basically reset the planet. If the Denisovans were mostly living in mountain valleys and caves, an event like this could have just buried them, leaving almost no trace behind. And so we come full circle. An entire civilization with advanced technology, incredible biology, a huge range, potentially wiped off the face of the earth in an instant. And for tens of thousands of years, all that was left was this one silent piece of evidence, a single fragment of a finger bone, lying in the dark of a Siberian cave. It leaves you with this one final, profound thought. The Denisovans prove it's possible for an entire advanced branch of humanity to be almost completely erased from history. So if they could be lost and then found just by accident, it really makes you wonder, right? What else have we missed? What other secrets are buried right under our feet, just waiting to be discovered?